Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Singapore Literature Book Bazaar. My name is Natasha, and I'll be your host for today. To encourage the appreciation of Singapore literature amongst young and working adults, the Singapore Book Publishers Association is organizing the Singapore Literature Book Bazaar from today till 20th March. This event is part of the Sing Lit Read Our World movement supported by the National Arts Council. The official venue sponsor is the Arts House, with Lazada powering online book sales as our official e-commerce partner. This hybrid event is filled with book launches, book sharings, meeting of authors, and panel discussions curated for the consumers in mind. While the online book fair is happening at bookbazaar.sg, you can also shop, watch, and participate in our activities and events virtually. Now let's take a look at a short clip on the Singapore Literature Book Bazaar. All right. Now we'd like to welcome our guest of honor, Mr. William Puan, Chairperson of Singlit Committee and Executive Director, Singapore Book Council, to give his opening speech. Mr. William Puan, please.
Thank you, Natasha. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Singlit Read Our World Working Committee, I would like to welcome you to the official launch of the Singapore Literature Book Bazaar 2022. As many of you know, Singlit Read Our World is an industry-led movement to celebrate stories from Singapore, with homegrown publishers, retailers, and literary nonprofits coming together to encourage more people to discover and embrace Singapore's literature. It is the rebranding of the Buy Singlit movement as we open a new chapter of this evolving and growing movement. The Singapore Literature Book Bazaar, organized by the Singapore Book Publishers Association, or SBPA, is an important component of our collective efforts. Third in a series of book fairs organized by SBPA, after the Mother Tongue Languages and Children's Book Fairs last year, the Singapore Literature Book Bazaar aims to encourage the appreciation of local writers and their works among young and working adults. SBPA has put together a wonderful lineup of programs and activities, which you just saw in the short clip, over the next 14 days. They boast a hybrid mix of in-person and online events. I would like to commend the SBPA team for putting together this wonderful event in spite of the volatile and challenging time. Congratulations. All these events include book launches, meet the author sessions, workshops, panel discussions, and book sharing sessions. 15 publishers are also featured in the Book Bazaar, as you can visit their respective booths and check out their latest published titles. And I encourage all of you to check out all these programs at the Book Bazaar and take your time to discover writers and their books. More information can be found on SBPA's website and Facebook page. Through buying and reading local books, we believe that you support the writers who bear witness to our lives, as well as all the businesses in our community that deliver all these stories to us. Most of you will experience a profound joy of unraveling the multifaceted world around you. So please support the Singlit Read Our World movement and the Singapore Literature Book Bazaar, and look out for the Tamil My Singlit programs in April. In closing, on behalf of the committee, I would like to thank the National Arts Council for supporting Singlit Read Our World. We hope that NAC will continue to support the movement. I would also like to thank the official venue sponsor, the Arts House, and the official e-commerce partner, Lazada. Here's to more collaborations between us. I wish SPP a big success for the Book Bazaar, and all of you a most rewarding and fruitful time discovering and reading Singlit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. William Puan, for your insights and updates. Next, we are pleased to invite Ms. Valerie James, Manager for SBPA, to share more about the Singapore Literature Book Bazaar. Ms. Valerie, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking your time to be here with us today. As introduced, I am the manager of Singapore Book Publishers Association, so if you would like to know more about our current and future events, please do look for me or our Executive Director, Cecilia Wu. Now, without further ado, allow me to go through the program for today so that you know what you are in for. Basically, the Singapore Literature Book Bazaar, this is just to encourage appreciation for Singapore literary community. As known, we are a very small community and we would like to encourage more readers and writers, those aspiring writers and readers. And thus, this event is part of the Singlit Read Our World movement, which is supported by the National Arts Council. The official venue sponsor is the Arts House, and Lazada powers the online book sales as the official e-commerce partner. The Singapore Book Bazaar will be held for 14 days at the Blue Room, which is on the right-hand side, all the way straight down. Over there, you would see our publishers with all of their booths, and you can see the books that they have laid out for you. Now, for the next 14 days, it will be a hybrid event with book launches, book sharing meetings, meeting of authors, panel discussions, and talk shows curated for consumers in mind. At the same time, as said, online book sales are platformed on lazada.sg. But before we get into all of that, I would just like to ask you for a round of applause for the efforts of supporters, partners, and publishers for helping in bringing this event together. We have 5 virtual halls this time. The Singapore Book Bazaar consists of 5 virtual halls. We have firstly the bookstore, which is powered by Lazada. So when you head into the Blue Room, you would actually see publishers with their QR codes on their booths, on their tables, and whichever book that entices you, you can actually scan the QR code, and it will link you directly into their e-commerce page. Now, we're not allowed to have cash exchange in line with the COVID restrictions, so any payment will be done via online. Next up, we have events. These events are all virtual events, which are on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. So please do look at our Facebook and YouTube channel for updates on that. We have weekend in-person activities, and this is where it gets a little bit more interesting because you have Meet the Authors, you have book sharings, you even have the Meet the Artist, who is the illustrator for the literature comics, which is something new in Singapore. We have various promotions, which are free gifts. We have Spin to Win. Spin to Win that comes up with so many gifts where you can actually, with minimum purchase, and you can spin it, but please do note whatever that you have purchased of the Singlit books, please do show us your receipt so that you are eligible for the Spin to Win. We even have a survey whereby you can redeem your favorite books if you join the online survey. We have a Singapore Literature Singlit card. So all these are at the Blue Room, and you can actually see all the books redeemable, and you can browse through them. It's only for browsing. And lastly, we have the Singapore Book Awards Showcase. This is 2021's showcase. You can actually be empowered by the Singapore artists, the Singapore writers, and the finalists of this book awards. So I will see you all later at the Blue Room. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valerie, for the sharing. All right, we're going to start the book launch. Sit back and relax as I invite our respective authors on stage. First up, let's invite our first author, Loh Ying Ping, on stage to share about her book, Prophecy of the Underworld. Loh Ying Ping, please.
Hi, I'm Ying Ping, and I'm very happy today to be here to launch Prophecy of the Underworld. This is my first book published with Penguin Random House Southeast Asia. So prior to that, I have a few other books published with other publishers. And the first books that I actually wrote and published are the Mount Emily books. This is a series of 4 books featuring friendship and time travel, and it's published with Epigram Books. And more recently, I've also published Journey to the West. This is a retelling of the famous Chinese classic, Journey to the West, for younger children. And there are 3 volumes, 2 are out, and the last one will be out in May this year. So my previous books, Mount Emily and Journey to the West, drew very heavily from my Chinese heritage. So for example, in Mount Emily, there is a character in the book who is a Chinese poet, and the children in the book have to decipher the meaning, the hidden meaning in his poetry in order to solve some of the mysteries in the novels. So, and of course, Journey to the West is a famous 500-year-old Chinese classic. But for Prophecy of the Underworld, my influences were mainly the English books that I've read growing up. And these are the stories about heroes going on quests to save the world, basically. So among them are books like Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, Indiana Jones. Well, Indiana Jones was more the movies that I watched. And King Arthur, I read so many versions of King Arthur, and movies like The Matrix and so on. So these books invariably feature heroes who, for one reason or another, turn out to be the only one who is able to save the world. And I also had influences from game books and game books such as Lone Wolf and Grail Quest. I don't know how many of you here actually read game books when you were younger. How many of you actually read game books? Do you all know Lone Wolf or Grail Quest? Not many. I think they are not very common nowadays. In fact, I don't think they are written anymore, unless I'm mistaken. But basically, these are books which are a bit like video games, except they're in book form. And they are similar to Choose Your Own Adventure books, except that they are a lot more interactive. So people would, when they read the books, they would be rolling dice and trying to fight enemies with, they roll dice to figure out how many points they get, how many points the enemies get, and so on. And they'll fight the enemies with their skills and their powers, and they get to upgrade their skills as they go along, as they advance through the books. So those were very interesting adventure stories. And I think in those days before video games, they were really as interactive as you could get in an adventure story. So these were very strong influences for me for writing Prophecy of the Underworld. And I also played in my adult years Final Fantasy. I came late to the game, so by the time I started playing, I was already playing. I think Final Fantasy 8 or 9 were already out. So, but they were great influences for me because they also featured heroes who somehow or other are selected, whether by destiny or by certain people, to be the ones who have to go on a long journey to battle monsters, solve puzzles, and upgrade their skills, and somehow or other just save the world. So Grail Quest, the one in red, sorry, it's a bit dark, was a particularly strong influence for me because unlike most other game books, Grail Quest did not take itself very seriously. It was very hilarious, it's very comically written, and I think Grail Quest, in a way, is quite postmodern in the sense that it parodies what the usual hero narrative is like. So I had quite a lot of influences in that sense from these books. And, okay, let's see. Okay, so I think, as I mentioned earlier, Grail Quest actually parodies the normal hero narratives of the time. And I think when authors parody books, it's not so much to make fun of them. Okay, I think there's some making fun involved. I certainly did make fun of some of the conventions that I saw in adventure stories. But I think it's also the author's way of paying tribute to a genre that they love very much. And I love hero adventure narratives, and I found that there's a lot in this kind of narratives. There are a lot of conventions or tropes in this kind of narratives that are very rich for exploring, and in terms of comedy as well, there's a lot of comedic value and there's fun in this kind of books. So I think every genre has its own conventions. And so for example, if you are watching, say, a medical drama, I think the hero is invariably a super doctor, and he will always have people collapsing right in front of him, and he has to save the people. And I think sooner or later in the story or in the TV show, all his close friends and relatives will end up having some sort of serious illness that only he can cure. So those are the conventions of a medical drama. Or let's say a detective drama. Okay, in a detective drama, somehow or other, all the friends and relatives of that detective will end up, in one episode or another, being kidnapped, murdered, blackmailed, or forced to commit some sort of crime that will throw the detective into a moral quandary. So these are the conventions which, when we think about it in real life, it's quite unbelievable, but we totally accept them because they are what make that genre so fun. And I decided that I like hero adventure narrative so much that I wanted to write a spoof of it. Yeah, so it's more of my tribute to this genre rather than the fact that I wanted to make fun of it. So, so in my spoof, I actually have an unreliable narrator. Okay, maybe I should read you a description of the book first so you know what it's about. So basically, Prophecy of the Underworld is about, it's filled with wacky humor and surprising twists and turns. And it's a spoof of hero adventure narratives which follows a misguided hero and his 3 friends on a hilarious romp through a parallel world in a quest to save their own from destruction. So in my spoof of this hero adventure narrative, I had an unreliable narrator who, through his thoughts and actions, in a way, parodies or brings attention to how absurd some of these conventions can be in a hero adventure narrative. And so, for example, one of the very common convention in this kind of story is that there's usually a chosen one, someone who is destined to save the world. So in my book as well, I also had a chosen one, okay? But the strange thing is that, usually in a prophecy, let's say, for example, let's say Wheel of Time, there's a prophecy that there'll be a dragon reborn, and nobody really quite knows who he is until finally he proves himself, right? So, but in my book, the chosen one is oddly specific. The prophecy is oddly specific. It actually identifies the hero right down to his age, his name, and the country that he's from. So the thing is that on the eve of the day that the hero needs to save the world, this hero unexpectedly dies in a freak accident. So what to do? Okay, so my book actually answers the question that has plagued mankind ever since hero narrative started, which is that what if the hero is not the chosen one, but the random one? Will he still be able to save the world? Okay, so so in my book, this is the cover, by the way, of my book. And the boy in the middle, Julian Key, he's the random one. So what happened is that when the original hero died, there's this wise old man, because there's always a wise old man, right, in this kind of narratives. This wise old man randomly selected Julian Key to be the hero to stand in for the original one. So, so he has to try to save the world. So he and a couple of friends actually go on a quest together to save the world, and hilarity ensues because this Julian Key is really not very suited to be a hero. Okay, he's very ill qualified to be one, in fact. So in terms of but this wise old man who selected Julian Key really tried very hard to make sure that Julian fits into the mold of the typical chosen one. So he asked Julian questions like, might you not be an orphan whose parents died under mysterious circumstances? Because that's what often happens, right, in this kind of story. And Julian says no, his parents are still very much alive, thank you. And then the old man says, I bet there was always something different about you, some misunderstood talent, like you can talk to snakes, maybe? So again, this is typical of this kind of narrative, and I think many of you here will recognize the intertextual reference that I made about talking to snakes. Okay, hint, Harry Potter. So actually, I included a lot of intertextual references as well in my book. So those of you who are or those children who are widely read, I think will get an extra layer of enjoyment when they recognize all the intertextual references. So again, the boy answers that no, he has no talent at all. And then the wise man says, but you must at least be a loner. Nobody understands you because you are so brilliant. And of course, Julian says that no, actually, I'm not very brilliant. I failed all my exams and all that. So the old man actually got quite depressed when he heard that Julian doesn't really fit into the mold of a hero. And he only brightens up when Julian says that, oh, no, I'm not a loner. I actually have two best friends. And the wise old man says, two sidekicks, that's a really great advantage and well done, So, okay, on you go to save the world. So Julian was sent on this quest. And he's really ill-qualified, okay? So I'll give you some reasons. The first reason why he's ill-qualified is that he has basically no leadership capabilities. Okay, so when he makes a decision and his friend asks him, do you really mean that? Julian says, I have always found it odd that even when I'm very sure of something, I will immediately become unsure when someone asks me that. And so on. So throughout the book, you'll see that he's really not very good at leadership. Although, of course, there's a character development for him, and he does grow as the journey progresses. But especially at the beginning, you'll see that he really has no leadership capabilities. And he's also not very bright. So, for example, when the children are given a clue that they have to look for swans in the botanic gardens, I think you'll notice that there are swans on the cover of my book. So Julian looks at a map of the botanic gardens, and he sees there are 3 lakes: Eco Lake, Symphony Lake, and Swan Lake. And then he goes, where can I find swans in here? It's impossible to guess. So he always has these issues about being able to make good decisions. And then also the third reason is that he is very easily distracted. So for example, once in the middle of the quest, he comes upon a stunt show, involving acrobatics and fire and all that, which, by the way, was inspired by Indiana Jones. So there's some Indiana Jones sequences in there as well. So and he wonders, does he really have time to stop in the middle of a rather time-sensitive, urgent quest to watch a stunt show? And I think you wouldn't be surprised that after some deliberation, his answer is yes. And this kind of distraction is actually very common in game books and role-playing games like Final Fantasy, when the heroes actually stop in the middle of the very urgent quest to go and do mundane things like digging a hole in the ground or like taking part in a race and things like that. And usually these are side quests which help the characters to earn money to buy cool stuff or upgrade their weapons or something like that. So these kind of distractions are not very realistic, again, in real life, but again, totally acceptable in the conventions of the genre, because it's the kind of thing that really makes this kind of books and games interesting. So so Julian gets distracted, he does all this kind of thing. And so he bumbles around with his friends, and I'm not going to tell you whether they manage to save the world or not, but I think what you can expect is that there'll be a lot of twists and turns in the story, and the ending, I think, is not going to be what you quite expect it to be. I mentioned the botanic gardens just now. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the setting. So while most of the book is set in a parallel world that is not really the Earth that we know today, but the book begins and ends actually in present-day Singapore. So I like to ground my novels whenever possible in Singapore, in local settings, because I'm a proud Singaporean, and also because I think readers, children, will be excited to read about places that they actually know about. So for example, in Mount Emily, I had scenes that are set in like Chinatown, where else? Bras Basah Complex, of course Mount Emily Hill, and so on. So for Prophecy of the Underworld, I actually had 2 very significant scenes in the Botanic Gardens. And I think you'll recognize in these pictures the very iconic statue at Swan Lake and this beautiful pavilion that's called the Bandstand. So I hope after reading the book, the kids will be excited as well to want to go and visit these places. But so most of the book is actually set in a parallel world, as I mentioned earlier on. And this parallel world is where the kids have to enter this world in order to find a magical rock that can help to save their world from destruction. So the world has been prophesied to end in a series of natural disasters, and the children have to go into the underworld to find this magical rock. Okay, and this underworld, I should explain to you, is it lies underneath the crust of the earth. So, you know, there's this saying, right? The world is your oyster, thank you. Yeah, but in the underworld, they say it differently. They say the world is your coconut. Okay, and the reason for that is because the world is shaped like a coconut. There is a hollow in the middle. Okay, and in this case, there is another world that exists underneath, as you can see from this very scientific drawing over there. So this is the parallel world that the kids enter into to get the rock. But there is a problem, okay? And the problem is cats. Cats are always causing problems, in my opinion. And when I say cats, I mean CATTSS, which is short for Council for Analyzing and Thinking Through Serious Stuff. This is the ruling body of the underworld, and you can tell from the name of the council that they take their job very seriously. Okay? So the council objects to Julian and his friends taking the rock away from the underworld. So they threw all sorts of obstacles in the way. And also another problem that they had was that they encountered a girl quite early on in the adventure who lives in the underworld, and she quite cheerfully volunteers her life to help these strangers in their quest, which again is another convention that we see in this kind of genre where they'll meet strangers along the way and they'll just like happily jump in and say, yes, I don't mind dying for this, you know, and they just go along with it. So, and the children will have to figure out whether or not this girl is really just a very kind, selfless person, or if she's really a spy for the council. So actually, even though this is quite a comedic book, it still manages to, through the relationships of the children with each other, to convey serious ideas about friendship, loyalty, and honor, and things like that, yeah. So again, these are common themes in hero adventure narratives. So I hope you will join the kids as they muddle through the underworld. Okay, it's a lot of fun in there. There are dungeons, there are dragons, there are torture chambers, there are mazes and very cute animals and so on. There's really a lot of fun in there. And I think beyond the fun and the comedy, this story is also takes a serious look at how ordinary people, not born to be heroes, actually react in the face of challenges and danger. So I hope you will all give it a try. And I think if you buy this book from Lazada, there are some QR codes here that you could scan. You will be able to get freebies and prizes and all sorts of things, I think, yeah, in conjunction with this Singapore Literature Book Bazaar. So thank you very much. And I think there is a large version of the cover over there that we could unveil. This was a surprise to me. I didn't realize that there was an unveiling ceremony, so it's so exciting. Okay, thank you. Oops. Okay, thank you. So I'm not sure how to do this. Shall I just pull this? Would Nora like to join me to my publisher? Yeah. Nora is the one that I pitched this story to. I met her at, I think, Penguin's inaugural book launch. Yeah, I was very nervous when I talked to her. It's a wonder that she took me on. What shall we do? Okay, let's just do this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much for your time. I hope you will try this book.
Thank you, Ms. Low. That honestly sounds like an exciting story for the young and a very relatable protagonist, yeah? Not just for the young, but for adults alike. Okay, next we have Madam Sharifah Muhammad to share on her book, Rumah Hijau Penulis. Madam Sharifah, please.
Dear Mr. William Puan, guest of honor, Executive Director of Singapore Book Council, and Singlit Chairman. Manager of Miss Valerie, Singapore Book Publisher Association, Miss Valerie James, fellow publishers and writers, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. A big thank you for your precious time in attending this launching day. Let me begin with Malay first, ya. Saya bersyukur dan berterima kasih kepada Pustaka Nasional kerana mengundang saya dalam pelancaran buku ini. Buku Rumah Hijau Penulis ini merupakan kumpulan esei mengenai kita, bahasa dan budaya kita, keharmonian berbilang kaum kita, matlamat masa depan dan kehidupan kita di Singapura. Harapan saya, Singapura dapat melahirkan lebih banyak buku untuk pembacaan kita, insya-Allah. Saya ingin berkongsi pantun ini mengenai buku. Ayah berburu semenjak pagi, dapat rusa, nipah dan kuang. Bacalah buku ke mana pergi, nescaya masamu tidak terbuang. Okay, let me now speak in English, ya. This book, which translated as the author's greenhouse, consists of essays about us, about our language, about our cultures, our racial harmony society, our goals, dreams, future, and life in Singapore. Let me quote words from this book called Bibliophile Diverse Spine. Okay, it said, sometimes you read a book to learn. Other times you read for entertainment. But there are times when you just need to read a book that makes you think. Okay, we all know that a book is never finished, right? And you know what I mean, right? Okay, that is what I can share with you all today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Sharifah. What an interesting story. Finally, we have our last author, Haja Sukina binti Haji Sapar, also known by her pen name, Karno, to share on her book, Yang Kupanggil Sayang, Yang Kupanggil Bidadari. Haja Sukina, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. William Pond, Miss Valerie James, friends, all friends and partner. Okay, this book is my second book after I temporarily retired for many years. Now I come back for the second book. Okay, I would like to thanks to the organizer for taking into account to include my book in today's event. I was very touched by the attention given. After some time very quiet, now come back something different, you see. Okay, the book title Yang Kupanggil Sayang, Yang Kupanggil Bidadari was born during COVID pandemic, where everybody feels sad. Then I, one of them, feel very, very sad. Where I explore all the feeling, then I put into a story. So I hope this story, whatever you feel sad during the pandemic, that is the actual is happened. Where frontliner have to sacrifice parents, kids, children. We have to sacrifice a lot of things. But to the journey, what we feel is very sad. But I hope you don't feel sad not to buy my book. Okay, so I started to, because the conflicts of emotional sad is goes to climax. So I managed to complete this book between 4 months. You see? So after that, in 2021, I decided and I chose a direction to publish the book. Even though I know everyone there feel very sad, maybe they got no time to feel very sad with my book, but I believe that every author or writer, they have a vision in mind. They have a mission in heart. So I hope there is, around, outside, can read the book. So I hope you all here can deliver the story and like to read my book and my next book. That's all only. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Haja Sukina. Now we'll have the book presentation. May we invite on stage our GOH, Mr. William Puan, please. Our authors will be presenting their books to Mr. Puan. First up, we have Loh Ying Ping with her book Prophecy of the Underworld. Next, we have Sharifah Muhammad with her book Rumah Hijau Penulis. And finally, Haja Sukina binti Haji Sapar with her book Yang Kupanggil Sayang, Yang Kupanggil Bidadari. Okay, may we invite everyone for a group photo, please? All right, let's have a round of applause for our authors. We hope you've had a great time, and we would like to thank those watching online for your support as well. For those of you who are here at the Arts House, do visit the Book Bazaar at the Blue Room to immerse yourself in a world of local literature. Online, you can also visit bookbazaar.sg to purchase titles from participating publishers. We have a great lineup of activities, workshops, and webinars in the coming days. You don't want to miss that out. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the event.